Epictetus once said that I must die. If at once, then I'm dying. If soon, I dine now. That is, it's time for dinner. And afterwards, when the time comes, I will die. There's a Latin phrase, memento mori, remember you will die. How do you view death and mortality? And do you think it's important to constantly remind ourselves that we are all one day going to die?
Yeah, that phrase by Epictetus was one of the first things that turned me into Stoicism. Because first of all, notice the sense of humor. Oh, if I have to die now, fine. But if not, I'm going to out for dinner. I'll think later about dying. So I like that kind of approach. No nonsense, tinged with a little bit of humor. But yeah, I think that attitude is basically right. And this is one of those rare cases actually where the Stoics and the Epicureans did agree. Epicurus famously said that why are you worried about dying, about death, where death is, you are not, and where you are, and where you are, she's not.
I'm just going to read it out. Death, therefore, the most awful of evils, is nothing to us, seeing that when we are, death is not come, and when death is come, we are not.
Right. So
simple equation.
Exactly. So he was saying, look, being dead means that you're not going to have any experiences. There is no you there anymore. So that's what it means to die. So why are you worried about what happens after death? There's nobody there that is going to actually experience anything. Therefore, don't worry about it. Now, the Stoics turned that around. The Stoics were very, they gave a lot of thought to the issue of death, not just Epictetus, but also Seneca, for instance. But what they did was they turned it around and said, look, since death is something you don't really need to worry about for the same reasons that the Epicureans put forth, then shouldn't you be worried about what you're doing right here, right now? That's why Epictetus says, it's time for dinner, so let me go have dinner, right? In other words, it turns the issue of death into a appreciation of life, in a sense. Like, well, I know I have to die at some point, and when that point comes, I'll deal with it. I will prepare myself mentally for that point. But right now, I have a life to live. The ancient Romans put it in terms of hic et nunc, which means here and now. You need to pay attention here and now. I'm not going to worry about death. I'm talking to you, and I'm enjoying this conversation. This afternoon, presumably the situation is going to be the same. My death isn't going to be that much closer, so I'm going to go for a walk, or I'm going to do, something else. I'm going to call a friend, etc., etc. And then when it's time to deal with it, you'll deal with it, just like you deal with everything else in life. It is true that the Stoics did think that death, the process of dying really, is the most important test of our character, in a sense, because it is a big one. Society tells us it's a big one. We're all, we're talking. There's a lot of resources and energy and writings and talking that goes into thinking about death. But from the Stoic perspective, it's like, okay, that is just one more thing that is going to happen in your life. You're guaranteed that it's going to happen at some point, and more importantly, you don't know when. We all make this mistake, I think, which is psychologically reassuring, of thinking in statistical terms. So for instance, in my case, I'm 59. Statistically speaking, as a white male who lives in the United States, I have a life expectancy into my late 70s. So I tend to think, like everybody else would, okay, I got some time. I don't know. I could go across the street in half an hour and be hit by a bus, and that would be it. Or I could live well into my 80s or 90s. I have no idea. And why should I worry about it? It's going to happen when it's going to happen. And there's nothing else I can do about it.
That solves it. No fear of that. That was easy.